If you want to get into music more or anything art-wise, and I definitely recommend if you're into music, especially if you're into Fleetwood Mac, those fans are crazy. I did want to just put it out there for all the Swifties. If you like hip-hop. Hi, what's up? I'm Fleur. This is not a style of video that I normally do on this channel. You probably don't know me, but if you do, it's likely because of either my covers or my ASMR content on YouTube. But I want to revive this channel. I feel like I have so much to say about books. I love reading and I have a lot to say about a bunch of other things and I just want to share. So if you're interested, subscribe and stick around and let's talk about some book recommendations that I have for if you love music. Let's get into it. The first book that I'll recommend has been recommended by so many people. I think you've probably heard of it if you're already interested in music, and that is Just Kids by Patti Smith. And I'll read the backs to you of these books and I'll tell you a little bit about them. These are all books that I've read. This one I gave 5 stars on Goodreads. If you want to be friends on Goodreads, the link to everything social-wise is in the description box. So add me as a friend, I would love that. Just Kids is a New York-based love story about Patti Smith and her relationship to Robert. I don't remember Robert's last name because it's been a while since I read it. But they share a beautiful relationship. Patti is known for rock and roll. She's known as the mother of rock and roll. And it's just filled with art. It's so beautifully written. If you're young and you like music, you like art, you like New York, you like... I think this was in the 70s. I feel like it's very inspiring if you're a creative person and if you want to get into music more or anything art-wise. I think that this will really, really inspire you and motivate you to make your art. On the back it says, Just Kids begins as a love story and ends as an elegy. It serves as a salute to New York City during the late 60s and 70s and to its rich and poor, its hustlers and hellions. A true fable, it is a portrait of 2 young artists' ascent, a prelude to fame. Yeah. I couldn't recommend this more in general, but especially if you're into art. Did I say that you would like this book if you're into art? I don't know. The next book that I'll recommend is not a book that I liked, but hear me out, okay? This is The Giant Dark, and it is by Servat Hassin. I'm not sure if I said her name right. I hope I did. This is a very loose retelling of Orpheus and Odysseus. I'd have to check. This follows Ada and Eshan, and Ada is a pop star, and I'll read the back to you because it's more clear. Ada is a defining rock star of her age. Her every move is observed, examined, and owned by a devoted, cultish fan base. When she disappears without a trace into complicated love affair, her fans are determined to find her, uncover her truths, and own her once more. Away from the spotlight, Ada and Eshan reconnect after a decade apart, hoping to recapture the innocent, lost love of their youth. Before long, their connection is strained by secrets and jealousies, and the past begins to blur with the present as they follow in the footsteps of tragic, mythic lovers before them. If you're unfamiliar with the story of Odysseus and Eurydice, it's tragic. I think that the reason I recommend it is because that it's very beautifully written, but I didn't like the plot. And you just have to look it up on Goodreads if you want to form your own opinion on it. But I did want to recommend it because I think that the way that the cultish fan base is described in this book is very interesting, especially as someone who's into music. If you're interested in the fame world and like reading about that, I would definitely recommend this because those fans are crazy and it's written very tenderly in how they love Ada and how they support her. And let me find a little thing to read to you. There's also some vampire stuff in here, which I don't know if you're into that, but I wasn't, so... You know what? I'll just read the first page to you and then you can decide. Many people would love Ada. Years after her death, her music would survive. It would play on the radio, find itself on lists of the greatest hits over the decade. At parties 50 years into the future, where people who weren't born when she began would try to remember what it was like to be us. Anniversary albums would be released 10, 20, 30 years after the first came out. Cover songs of varying quality would cycle in and out of existence. New droves of youth, crackling out from their eggshells, baby ducklings dancing to her tunes. They would continue to fall in love with her, again and again, but we were the first. We loved her the best of all. There are memories of discovering her that ring us still, like eating good food for the first time. Ada was our first lick of adulthood. No longer craving sugary music, but something that hit the back of your throat instead, thrummed all the way through you. I think that this is beautifully written. It's insanely intense, and I do think that if you're into that kind of stuff, this would be the book for you. I just didn't like the plot. One of the reviews on Goodreads was no plot, just vibes, and I missed the vibes as well, unfortunately, but I do think that you might enjoy the vibes, so still recommending it. The next book that I want to recommend, I don't have a physical copy of, but it is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid, I personally really love her writing style because it's so vivid what she writes. At this point, I feel like it's just movie scripts that I'm reading. I really like her style. The books are very easy to flow through, and Daisy Jones and the Six specifically is written in this interview format, and it follows Daisy Jones and the Six, both bands, and it follows all the characters, and they tell the story of them collaborating, working together, their fame and their downfall, basically. It has a very interesting timeline. The characters are very nicely developed, I feel like. It's inspired by Fleetwood Mac, if I got that right. It's set in the 70s. It has that whole rock and roll hippie vibe to it that is just amazing to read. It's a perfect summer read, I think, and I do really like the series that they turn it into if you try to separate them. So yeah, keep that in mind, I guess. But I really enjoyed both, and I definitely recommend if you're into music, especially if you're into Fleetwood Mac and their style and a little bit of band drama. I always think that's fun. Then I'm going to recommend to you my favorite book of all time, Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson. Now this is especially for you if you like hip-hop, if you like art in general. It's such a beautiful, beautiful book. It's a novella, so it's pretty short. I'll read the back to you and I'll read you some quotes. Two young people meet at a pub in southeast London. Both are black British. Both won scholarships to private schools where they struggled to belong. Both are now artists. He a photographer, she a dancer, trying to make their mark in a city that by turns celebrates and rejects them. Tentatively, tenderly, they fall in love. But two people who seem destined to be together can still be torn apart by fear and violence. At once an achingly beautiful love story and a potent insight into race and masculinity. Open Water asks what it means to be a person in a world that sees you only as a black body, to be vulnerable when you are only respected for strength, to find safety in love only to lose it. With gorgeous, soulful intensity, Caleb Azuma Nelson has written the most essential British debut of recent years. Fully agreed. What I'm touching on in this video is mostly the music part, so that's why I'm recommending it now, but it goes into so much more. It's very, very insightful, written from a perspective that I will never be able to personally relate to what's written, but I feel like it's so important for these voices to be heard, for Caleb Azuma Nelson's voice to be heard in the characters, and I feel like you do yourself a big favor by reading this book. I really recommend looking up the playlists that have been made for this book because it goes into so much good music, and listening to the songs and reading the book is a vibe, so I highly recommend it. Let me find some quotes. It's written in second person, which is also interesting. You spent the day indoors, the morning slipping by at your desk where you flicked through a book of images. Roy de Caravas, The Sound I Saw, and you wrote a little. Not much, but something. You wrote something. The rest of the day, a blanket draped over you, poring over the pages of a novel. Zadie Smith's N.W. I love her writing, her mother says. She's my favorite writer. N.W. is the book that I return to the most. Perhaps that is how we should frame the question forever. Rather than asking, what is your favorite work? Let's ask, what continues to pull you back? This book is just wonderful. I've read it multiple times. Yeah. I don't know, if you love music, if you like hip-hop, if you like poetry, I would also recommend this. It's very, very lyrically written, and the words just flow over the page. It's absolutely gorgeous, so highly recommend, and let me know if you've read it. One last book that I'll recommend is a summer romance novel, and this is especially if you're into Taylor Swift. And that is The Summer of Broken Rules by KLL Walter, I think her name is. I'm not sure anymore, but you'll see it on the picture. She wrote a wonderful, silly little romance novel, and it's all based on Taylor Swift. That's the rumor that I've heard. It sets at Martha's Vineyard, and this girl goes there with her family for a wedding. Her family and the groom's family play this big game of assassin throughout their stay there, and it's hilarious, and she falls in love with someone, and there's a little bit of scheming, and it's just good times all around, and it's set in Martha's Vineyard. There's a playlist that you can find on Spotify with all the songs that would relate to the story. On the playlist it mentions Hey Stephen, Cruel Summer, Willow, Lover, Afterglow, Fearless, so if you're into all those. I wouldn't say necessarily that this goes into music directly, but I did want to just put it out there for all the Swifties, because, you know, we gotta help each other out. Those are all the books that I wanted to recommend to you. Let me know if you read any of these, and let me know your thoughts on them and what you'd like to see next. I would love to make more book content, other content, so whatever you're into, I'm open for it, and let's have some fun on this channel. Thank you for watching, wishing you a very, very nice time, and I'll hope to see you in my next one. Bye.